Better than yours.
All right, here we go, everybody. I'm honored to have Marty Gallagher on today. And Marty has done a bunch of different stuff. He's a professional writer, has written over 1,000 articles, I believe, written numerous books, an elite level powerlifter himself, and he's coached some of the biggest names in powerlifting history, as well as working with military, and a very a great writer, too. So a lot of people are kind of fitness writers that just write something down, but he's actually like a classically great writer that actually knows fitness, which is a pretty unique thing. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Marty.
Oh God, I hate talking about myself, Josh.
Yeah.
Ask me something. I'll
Okay.
answer it that way.
So
All right. I was born in 1950.
Okay.
Right. So that kind of dates me. And when I first came up, was an Olympic lifter.
Mm-hmm.
Powerlifting didn't exist until 1964. So everybody was an Olympic lifter. And luckily, I fell in with a really good group of men Olympic lifters. Right. So I got taught right from the start. By the time, let's see, Josh, by the time I was 15, I had won the senior men's DCAAU title in the 198-pound class. By the time I was 17, I'd won the teenage national championships. And again, the guys that I was working with, these were guys that were competing at the regional and national level in Olympic lifting. So I kind of like I got dropped in the middle of the Gracie clan.
Yeah.
For powerlifting, right? Or strength. Let's say strength athletes.
You started lifting at 11, I believe I heard before.
Yeah.
And you kind of came up with the powerlifting because your mentor, I believe, was Hugh Cassidy, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I started working with you. Actually, there were two. There was I met and worked with you initially when I was a teenager, but I was still Olympic lifting. It was a guy named Glenn Middleton. He was a very interesting character. Glenn was a senior engineer for Bechtel,
okay,
one of the largest engineering firms in the world. And Glenn was originally from Detroit, and he had trained with the Szymanski brothers, Norbert Szymanski, the great, double Olympic gold medal winner. Mm-hmm. So Glenn had trained under Norbert and his brother, and then Glenn got transferred to Washington, D.C. with Bechtel, and he started training with Cassidy.
Okay.
So a lot of the Szymanski tactics Hugh took from Glenn and adapted them to powerlifting. Minimalistic stuff, grind work. So I met Hugh early on. Then at age 18, I moved out of my house and moved to Oregon. And man, I was on the road for about 4 years. And
were you living in a commune or something for a couple of years?
Oh yeah, man. I lived at commune at 1724 S Street, Washington D.C. Yeah, okay. we were right in the middle of it, baby. Let me tell you, it was 1969.
Yeah.
So, I lived in a commune. We had 4-story row house, 18 people living in it. We were one of maybe 15 communes within a 20-block radius.
Wow.
It was a big deal back then, right? So, I was lifted in the basement. I looked like one of the Flying Furry Freak brothers.
Okay.
I had an Irish afro.
Yeah.
Great. That's strong. Then I dropped out. I got out of lifting and I got into martial arts. And interestingly, I studied under the leading Chinese internal martial artist in the country was a guy named Robert Smith.
Oh, the CIA guy. He was like a CIA agent or ex-CIA agent? Yeah.
Yeah. So Bob gave, he did Tai Chi, Bagua, and Xing Yi. Those are the 3 Chinese internal martial arts. Mm-hmm. And I fell in with Bob, and then I picked back up with Hugh. So I'm training with the softest of the soft 2 days a week, and I'm training with the hardest of the hard 2 days a week, between powerlifting. And it was interesting because both Bob was interested in what Hugh was doing, and Hugh was interested in what Bob was doing. And I was sort of the in-between.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because there were a lot of concepts that Smith introduced to us in Tai Chi were actually the same concept that Cassidy was a brilliant Renaissance man in the truest sense. He was a fabulous metal sculpturalist. He was a great bass player. He spoke German. His wife was German. His daughter was Eva Cassidy. If anyone knows, Eva was one of the greatest American vocalists.
Yeah.
And she died early at age 33. If you get a chance, pull up any of Eva Cassidy's YouTube stuff. Okay. Incredible. So I'm training with Hugh in the basement 2 days a week, and Eva and Danny, Hugh's kids, are upstairs playing this ethereal music. And we're downstairs screaming and cussing like, we're like in Vulcan's Forge. And then the other 2 days a week, I'm working with Bob Smith, trying to be light and float over the surface of the earth. But Bob and Hugh, both, they were very interested in the concept of rootedness, right? Tai Chi, the big thing is root. Well, that's Cassidy's thing too, is root. So we actually devised our squat technique, stealing a lot of stuff from Chinese internal martial arts. It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, expand on it. This is great.
So, so that was the 70s. And Hugh also helped me start my writing career. My first articles were co-authored with Hugh.
Okay.
And I think my first published article was in 1979. It was in Powerlifting USA. He was a great writer too, so he helped me with my writing career. And Bob Smith was a great writer. Bob had all kinds of books written on the martial arts. So I had two writing mentors at the same time. So that went on for. I was in Hugh's basement for 5 years.
I mean, those workouts I heard were brutal. So it was like you said, it was kind of like, explain me if I'm wrong, but you did like one sort of top set, then you did a number of down sets after that.
Oh yeah, man. Twice a week. So we would you'd work up to a top set, and it depending upon where you were in your periodized cycle.
Okay.
And we all used straight line periodization. There was no fancy stuff back then. Sure. We didn't have no wave cycling or nothing like that. So, we'd meet on Saturday, and we'd squat. And we'd work up to a top set of squat. Let's say you were in the middle of your 12-week periodized cycle and you're working on fives.
Okay.
So you'd work up to a top set of 5, right?
Right.
Well, then Hugh would have you do 2 back down sets of 8. But they were deeper. If you took all your gear off, like maybe you might be wearing knee wraps and a belt for your 5. Right. So you take that stuff off for your 8. So you'd work up to a top set in the squat, two back off sets, work up to a top set of the bench, 2 back off sets, work up to a top set of the deadlift, 2 back off sets. Now he liked stiff leg deadlifts for his back offs and the deadlifts. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait a minute, we're not quite done yet, right?
Yeah.
So then we got to do some sort of a seated press, because his ceiling height was only 9 feet, so you couldn't push anything overhead.
Yeah.
So he had to sit in the floor. Now, he had stools. So we would do some sort of a seated press, barbell or dumbbell, and then do arms.
Okay.
Then we'd stagger upstairs 3 hours later, and, we had a rule that if your hand wasn't shaking so bad that you had to grab it with the other hand to put it in the ignition, you really hadn't given it your all. And we would sit outside and we'd drink a half a gallon of milk before we rode home, just to get our shit back together.
There you go.
Right? And we do that twice a week. Now, in retrospect, it was what we did. Our modification to the Cassidy system was to cut it in half. Hugh had cut in half his volume. Hugh was, when powerlifting originally started, everybody thought you had to squat, bench, and deadlift 3 times a week, because that's what they thought you had to do in bodybuilding. The big myth in all strength training was that if you did not train a muscle every 36 hours, that muscle degraded. That muscle went backwards. You went backwards. Sure. So everybody felt compelled, well, we got to squat, bench, and dead 3 times a week. That's fine as long as you're dicking around with 200 pounds in the bench and, 250 in the squat, that's okay. But when, you're benching 400, 500 and squatting, whatever, 650 for reps, you can't. So we cut it in half. And that was a radical move at the time. A lot of people were like, oh, that'll never work. Only training twice a week. That goes against science.
Sure.
On a side note, I got beat up by somebody 2 weeks ago in science. They were going to trump me with their science. Every 5 years, there's a new group of guys that their science trumps everything that's come before.
Sure.
We started getting beat up by the Arthur Jones people back with the Nautilus Revolution in the 70s. Oh, we were so stupid.
Yeah.
The barbells and dumbbells, they're going to be in the ash heap of history. No one's going to use those crude things anymore.
Sure.
So, but getting back to Cassidy, so what we did after I worked with Hugh for 5 years, and then Marshall Peck and Joe Ferry, we moved over to Mark Chalet's gym. And Mark opened his first gym in 1980.
Yeah.
And so we moved over to train with Mark, and I trained at Mark's for 6 years, and Mark was like a brother to me, man.
What was that gym? I heard that gym was intense. Yeah. You probably got some great stories from that place.
Well, I'll tell you a couple that I can tell.
You're welcome. Right. Well, anything we can get, we'll take.
It was just the best hardcore gym of all time because, first off, it wasn't ruined by the drugs yet. Yes, There were drugs around, but it wasn't just everything and everywhere. And the truly strong guys still shone through, right?
Sure.
I mean, and so Mark had been a protege of Larry Pacifico's. Larry had taken Mark out to Dayton. He saw Mark lift at the junior nationals and basically put him on scholarship. Said, hey, come work with me, kid, at my warehouse. And Mark did that. But Mark's dad was a big-time DC cop. He was like way up in the police force. So they had a little bit of money. So they opened the gym, and it was like a magnet, right? It drew every hardcore dude from the Washington, Baltimore area. We used to have a regular contingent of guys from Baltimore who would truck in. Monday was squat bench day. Thursday was deadlift day. Those are the two main days, right? And it started at 4:00. Now, what kind of responsible citizen gets to take off at 4:00 in the afternoon to go work out?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we start with that, right?
Right.
Right away, unless you got to be some sort of societal outlier to be able to consistently take off and be there and ready to lift at 4:00 on a Monday and 4:00 on a Thursday.
Sure.
So it was all undercover cops and criminals. But it was like Rick's Cafe in Casablanca. Everything was.
Favorite movies.
I'm just saying, you went to Chalet's and it was like, hey. I can tell you this. One of the guys, whose name shall remain unnamed, had his own segment of America's Greatest Gangsters on TV. Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. He was king of the DC cocaine trade for many years. Another of my training partners, who at the time was an undercover PG County cop, he went to jail for 25 years for attempted murder. I once stopped the machine gun sale in the gym between a Baltimore cocaine ring enforcer and a unknowing Montgomery County cop who thought he was dealing. Well, if he's at Mark's, he must be a nice guy. I said, "Stay away from that guy." So I mean, and this went on for years and years and years and years, and it kept getting better and better and better. And when Mark would lift at the Nationals, he'd have a posse of 20 people go because it was just such a great time. Those are the golden days of powerlifting. Yeah. Back when Pacifico, when Larry was running hard and strong, he had these fabulous meets at the Dayton Convention Center.
Yeah.
And he'd fill it. I mean, it'd be like, 2,000-3,000 people show up. on a Sunday for the heavy day, just first class, connected to a hotel. You had cheap rates, beautiful restaurant right in the same. You had the convention center, you had the hotel, you had a skywalk. You didn't even have to walk in the street. He had it there for I think 3 or 4 years in a row. So each year, people would start to build their vacations around. They're like, "Oh, let's go to the, it's a power festival at Dayton," and it was fabulous. We only had one organization at the time. We weren't splintered. It's so ridiculous nowadays. I don't even follow it. I couldn't tell you. I mean, every time there's so many organizations. It's so diluted. Imagine a time when there was just one organization and the strongest guys showed up and settled it. Isn't that a great concept?
It's an awesome concept.
Oh, God, it was fantastic. Oh, and Larry, by the end of it, in between sets, Larry had dancing girls and Klaus, the organ player. He imported an organ and an organ player from Europe who'd play this hot, like, groove homes music in between sets, in between when guys were, they're changing the weights. And then he had dancing girls. It was incredible. He had one year he had a hot buffet where you could get food served to you and you could get a bottle of beer for $1. And then you come back and sit down and watch, I don't know, Mike Bridges, right? Or Ed Cohn, or, I could never watch Mark Left because I was handling him at the time, but, and all the greats of the time. I mean, Kaz, Roger Estep, who else? Jim Cash, great lifter. Fred Hatfield was,
That's who my mentor is, Fred Hatfield.
Fred, yeah, God bless him. I saw Fred. The big year was when Fred, Larry, and Jim Cash battled it out, and it was those three, right?
Yeah.
And Fred squatted 880 at 220.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's backstage. He's wearing a hat and smoking a cigarette and drinking a drink.
That's it. That's Fred.
All right. He's got his hat on, jaunty hat off to one side, and I said, okay. So yeah, those are the golden days. And training at Mark's was Mark was the minimalist of the minimalist of the minimalist.
Perfect. That's about what I was going to ask about that.
Oh my God, it was great. So the 8-time world champion Larry Pacifico drafts you and has you come to Dayton.
Okay.
So Mark shows up and they put him to work in the warehouse, doing a job during the day, and then he's to train with Larry, and Larry's going to mentor him, right?
Right.
Mark was such a strong personality. He goes, "That's okay, Larry. I kind of got my own thing." I got my own way of training, Larry. Thanks anyway, though.
Yeah.
And Pacifico's like, does this kid have the hardest head in the world or what? And this is a 22-year-old guy, right?
Because Larry Pacifico's more like a power builder, huh?
Oh, my God. I think I'm the only guy in history that's ever read his book, Champion of Champions, twice. You ever seen that thing?
No, I haven't. This thick. I've interviewed him before. I know him.
Yeah, it's called Champion of Champions.
Okay.
It's a book about this thick, about 400 pages, and it's nothing but his workouts.
Oh, wow.
It's his workouts, and then he'll have, like when he has a meet, he'd have a little commentary. Competed at the 72 World Championships in, Finland, and he'll have a little review of how it went. But you have every set and every rep and every exercise that he did. And to me, it's like reading Egyptian hieroglyphics because I am facile in the language.
Sure.
And I think I pulled one page where I think within one 14-day period, he benched 4 times, handling at least 550 per reps.
Yeah.
Squatted 3 times. He was crazy for training. He loved training. He just loved to train. Kaz was like that too. Kaz was, I was a good friend of Tony Fitton's, and Kaz was a power bodybuilder.
Absolutely.
Did a lot of movements, a lot of volume, right?
Right, 100%.
But then again, these were 70s guys who were still that they're in we have to train a muscle 3 times a week.
Now, what
right?
about Mark Chalet though? So he's just
Oh yeah, so I'm sorry. Let me get back to Mark. So Mark, on Monday, he would work up to a single rep in the squat. He would work up to a single rep in the bench press. Thank you very much. See you next week. On Thursday, he would work up to a single rep in the deadlift. Thank you very much. I'm done.
that's it.
I'm not saying anything else, am I? No, nothing. He spent more time in the tanning bed than he spent training.
So and he did. So even when he started, you said I've listened to him stuff. You talk about it before. You were saying like 12 weeks out from a meet, you might set him up on a training cycle, and it's just lighter singles.
Yeah.
You know who else did that? Do you know who Gary
Yeah.
Frank is?
Who?
Gary Frank.
Gary Frank, the old big deadlifter, right?
Yep, that's exactly what he did too. He
A
started off
920 deadlifter. Yeah,
That's
I knew
him.
him.
That's
He was a
exactly what he
tall
did
guy,
too.
man. He was tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew Gary. He used to be around quite a bit. The one lift guy.
You know, he's good in all three.
Well, I mean, yeah, he did all three. God
Yeah.
bless him. But I mean, he wasn't up to the. Yeah, he was great in the one lift.
Great in the deadlift. What
Oh
about
my
now? What
God.
about is Hugh Cassidy still alive?
I assume so. We fell out of touch. Hugh moved away and was
Okay.
kind of reclused out. I'm kind of reclused out too. I don't see a lot of people. I'm not on the scene that much. I
So
mean,
are you
you
up
know
in the
what I mean?
mountains or what?
Pardon me?
You're up in the mountains or where do you live?
Yeah, I'm at the base of the Catoctin Mountains. I look up out of my house. I have a 130-year-old house, 3-story house, and I look out my front window at the mountain that Camp David is on.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
The presidential
So
retreat. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's my neighborhood and South Central Pennsylvania. But getting back to Mark, the wonderful thing about him is that he showed me how little a person can do and get strong. I mean, real strong, cock strong, world record strong. You know, Chalet pulled 880,
No,
weighing
I know.
weighing 269, right?
Right.
Uh, he squatted 1,000. I know he was legal because I called him up, right?
Right.
In training. He didn't duplicate it in competition. The most he got in competition, I believe, was 940. This is like he didn't have a good bench press because he had those long arms, incredible physique, incredible body, freaky wide shoulders, huge hands. It looked like a silverback gorilla.
Yeah, I always would have just assumed he did more volume before I knew about this, just because
No.
he's such a good physique.
I'm telling you, it's just what can happen when you concentrate on doing fewer things better.
Sure. And
Right?
how was his diet?
He cut out the ice cream sandwiches when he got 8 weeks out.
Okay.
He wasn't a drinker. He was not. He didn't care. I mean, Mark was always looking to push his body weight upward, so it was never really an issue. He was always fighting to keep his weight up.
And what was did he have a real good mental focus or just because he said,
He's a savage. I mean, he's the guy you want in your football team. He's the guy you want in your foxhole. But he's not. He's not philosophic, and Mark really didn't care about powerlifting, or he didn't know that much about it, or you know what I mean. He wasn't a student of it.
yeah.
He'd like walk around with this big ass telephone with an antenna about 6 feet long,
Yeah.
talking and we'd be going like, "Come on, man, let's go," and he'd be going, one more minute," right?
Yeah.
So, but he was just built for it, and great athlete. If he'd been 6 inches taller, he would have been a pro football center. He's 5'9".
Now, have you seen that minimalistic of approach work really well with people that aren't as genetically gifted?
Hell yeah, we do it today. That's yeah. Fast forward to 2020. Well, let me tell you about a second minimalistic incident I
Sure.
had in 1988. I took a job as a warehouse foreman in Milford, Connecticut, and my job was I ran a steel warehouse, and I had 25 alcoholics working for me, and between Monday and Friday, there was no way I could train. So it was either train one day a week or don't train. So I found out that Kenny Fantana was the power player in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Fantana was an incredible athlete. Um, 5'10", 5'10", 360, looked like Louis Cyr,
Yeah.
right? Uh, 633 double in the raw bench.
Jeez.
Yeah. 933 double in the squat, and he didn't. The suit that he wore was just ridiculous. Oh yeah, and the bench was done without a shirt. It was raw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the squat was super deep, just kind of Shane Hammond like kind of bounce out of the hole stuff. And Kenny couldn't train either. He ran a commercial gym called the Muscle Factory, and he couldn't get a workout in during the week. So he shut the gym down. Well, that's not true. He would get a slight workout in during the week, but he would shut the gym down on Sunday, and we'd all go in and squat, bench, and dead. Right?
Right.
Well, this is right. And then they would spin off and do arm work. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is like old home week. This is half a Cassidy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody progressed. I progressed. I won the Connecticut States that year. I was actually went ADFPA because I hadn't been doing anything for a long time. And squatted 660, pulled 683, weighing 220.
Wow.
And I could only train once a week. And I'm like, okay. Fast forward to 2020, I train guys every Sunday at a little country gym out here. My friend Don Berry,
Okay.
and these are local country guys, and they're all like auto mechanics and work at Walmart. And, you know what I mean? These
Sure.
are blue collar type guys, and they can only train once a week. They cannot train during the week. And we've been doing this now for 5 years. What do? Squat, bench, dead, throwing some arms one time a week. All these guys we have guys that we've been working with for 5 years who haven't peaked. They just keep growing. It works.
And what's the rep range like? Just singles, or is it?
Oh no. Again, we have to mix it up. We want to make it. If they have a competition coming up, yeah, it's time to lock into the classic 12-week cycle. But if they're in their off season, we'll try. I don't know. Chris Stuffin sent us a kind of a bar, like a Hatfield bar.
The Duffalo bar?
Yeah. No, it's a different. It's more like Fred's old.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking. Mm-hmm. Transformer bar.
So the guys might experiment with that. They might do some front squats. They might do higher rep squats. Different variations of the squat. Different variations of the bench. Oh, if you're in the off season, why not build your dumbbell bench? Oh,
sure.
Right? Because we know no matter where you end up dumbbell benching, you go back to the bar, you're going to be better, right?
Sure.
Right. So that kind of stuff. But that's all they have time for. So we want, and they need us because it's myself and Kirk Karwoski.
Yeah.
Kirk and I go over and Kirk and I lift still, both of us. But we mentor these guys and we drill them on technique, and the squats, everything's completely raw, completely drug free because they're just normal people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And, every one of them is just muscled up beyond belief because of this. I don't want to filibuster too much, but Charlie Francis's work, the great sprint coach.
Of course.
And his contention, I reread Speed Trap, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago, and it hit me that he was doing, in a lot of ways, the same thing that we were doing. His contention, and I think our contention, might be train the body as a whole, rest the body as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that maybe because we were whacking the body a little bit during the week, like, classical power split, what would you do? You do day one, legs, day two, bench and bench assistance work, maybe some triceps, skip a day, come back, deadlift, maybe do some shoulders, maybe put shoulders on a fourth day, but you spread it out. Well, what Francis was saying, and what we're kind of maybe coming to the conclusion, is that maybe these little mini jolts, right, during the week, maybe that was preventing the body from ever being fully rested and recovered. Now, what he was saying is that in order to increase a sprinter's all-out top speed,
mm-hmm.
they have to run at 102% when they're 100% rested. There's no sense running at 102% of 83% rested.
Gotcha.
All right.
Mm.
So apply that to strength training. And it's like, well, maybe we were hitting these subsequent weekly workouts and we weren't really ready for them. So again, and a lot of the guys will come in, well, not a lot of these guys because of their situation. A lot of guys will come in and do maybe benching later in the week, do the squat, the dead, or well, actually probably would be squat and bench classically go together. Squat, bench, do some arms, and then come back, 4 days later and do what your deadlifts and your overhead pressing.
Sure.
Right. So that would be we're getting results with 1 day a week strength training, but I think classically it's the 2 day split that most of the more advanced guys are using.
So do you guys? So you're saying before that people are when you guys are training there too, you make sure everybody's really focused on the person lifting and no phones out and that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, no talking. They lift one at a time, and everybody else watches while they lift. And we have everybody from guys that are squatting 200 for reps to guys that are squatting 650 for reps.
So how many is it? Like 20 people or something? 10 people?
Well, it depends. We'll have two stations set up.
Okay.
We'll have the heavy station set up, and if Kirk's lifting, he'll hold that one down. And we'll have the strongest guys lifting at one squat rack. Then we'll have the other guys lifting at another. Typically, we try to keep it to maybe 10 to 15. Well, we did try to keep it to 10 to 15. Now it's nothing.
Yeah. No, I got you there. So yeah, let's get into Kirk a little bit now too. So tell us. I mean, most people are going to know who Kirk is, obviously, but how did you guys hook up and stuff?
Kirk. Kirk is unique personality. He's sort of the strength. He's sort of powerlifting Keith Richards.
Okay.
You catch the analogy?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's intense personality, hard worker, totally dedicated his life for 10 years to this. Everything in his life was centered around this quest. He was disproportional. I started working with Kirk in 1980, I'm going to say 83.
Okay.
I had been working with Mark. I mean, we were campaigning Mark. I mean, Mark, it was nationals and worlds. Serious. And Kirk was sort of the junior lifter. He had come to us from the ADFPA. He was a good squatter, a little bit high, a little bit crazy, wild. He's a wild personality,
Sure.
which he exhibited in his lifting. We had to tone him down, focus him up. He started off just changing our weights. I mean, and he started off young with us. He was a young guy when he started with us. And we worked for 5 years at Mark Chalet's. Then we moved over to Maryland Athletic Club. And that's where he really became great. Everybody thinks that Kirk was born a world champion. He was born a good squatter, but he had to work like hell to bring up his bench press and his deadlift, and he was badly disproportional. You wouldn't know it looking at his upper body now. He's huge, but he looked like two different people. He looked like a guy riding on top of a swan, right?
Yeah.
Small upper body, short arms, giant butt, giant legs, huge calves. So, but he knew that in order to be anything other than a one lift wonder, he'd have to work the hell out of his bench and his deadlift. And that's what he did. And he got to a 600 raw bench, and he got to a 825 dead, and he tripled 800 with no straps.
Wow.
Now, he couldn't match the dead in competition because the squat just knocked the hell out of his deadlift. Right.
Right. It would have been interesting if he did a deadlift meet or something, what he could have done.
Yeah. And I still think that if I could go back in the time machine, I would make him be a sumo deadlifter. He was his legs were so big that he had a splayed. Cassidy had a very distinctive deadlift style that he taught to Mark Dimmodup, who was world champion 220, national champion 220. He talked to me. He talked to Chalet. And it's a one fist width between your heels, toe out, vertical upper body, vertical shins. We break the bar from the floor with our thigh power because we got world record level legs. We keep the hip hinge in reserve until it approaches the knees. That's when we crack the hip hinge in, right?
Okay.
Everybody else, they use the hip hinge to break it off the floor, right?
Yeah.
We don't do that because we have world record level legs. Whether it was Chalet, whether it was Cassidy, whether it was me, whoever, our squat, the squat and the deadlift to us were interlinked. You cannot separate them because the key to deadlift power is having a good squat. That's the first thing. We don't believe this thing about, well, the deadlift's about the back and the squat's about the legs. No, it's both about both. And if it's done right, because the techniques are very similar in our style. We have highly specific techniques.
Sure.
Well, a lot of people don't.
No, I know.
They just kind of slop it through, baby.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these guys, and it's like, I see some highly respected guys teaching other people, and I'm there screaming, does no one see that he's 4 inches high?
Gotcha.
I'm losing my mind as a coach. We start our guys out. I came from an Olympic lift background, so you know how we squat.
Sure.
You got to go ass on heels, and you have to. And Fred put it best of anyone. He said, when you get down to parallel, you have to unlock the hips. You got to get below, then you got to re-engage the hips to come back up. But if you just go down to that point where you don't have to unlock the hips and then go back up, well, Cassidy used to say every inch was worth 40 pounds.
40 pounds, yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so a guy squatting 2 inches below parallel is given away to a guy who's squatting 4 inches above parallel, 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Easy. So, and again, we built our squats from the bottom up. Everyone else builds their squats from the top down.
So that meaning that you start people deeper than they have to go in a competition?
Oh, these guys don't know. If they don't know any better, why not?
Yeah.
These guys are coming into, these are just normal people off the street. It's like, oh, yeah, you got to go all the way down, man. I mean, no, further. And they're going, okay, whatever you say, right? Now, with seasoned lifters, they're like, oh, my God, I could hurt myself. Yeah, you could. Right. But no, yeah, that's the way we squat. We start ass on heels like an Olympic lifter because you know what? If you get strong as hell squatting ass on heels, it's easy to cut your squats and be even stronger.
Sure.
That's the approach we have.
Now, what about, so you're getting back to Kirk right there on that?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I think you made a good point, and I think this is one that doesn't get covered a lot, the lifestyle. So tell us about, you said he's almost like Fred Hatfield called him a monk of iron.
Yeah.
Like, how did he revolve his life around the gym?
Well, first he had a good damn job.
Okay.
This was back in the days when a kid out of high school without a degree could get a job. He got a job as a union typesetter.
Okay.
Worked his ass off. But he only had to work his ass off 8.5 hours. If he worked 8 hours a day, 4 days a week, and half a day on Saturday, they gave him off on Monday.
Okay.
So he had the good job, and he was a good worker. So that was that's what allowed him to get his little condo in Crofton. Got a tight little, 1 bedroom. Women would come and go. Kirk's a good-looking guy. Was always popular with the babes. He's a fun guy. There's nobody you'd rather party with than Kirk. But they would come and go. The lifting was everything. Nothing could interfere. The partying, the women, nothing interfered with the lifting. And that went on for 10 years. And he got his ass kicked for the first 3 years that we went to the Nationals. It was not pretty. And, we were stepping up. He was coming up from the ADFPA into the big leagues, the USPF. And man, it was a meat grinder because when we first went in, he was going up against, I don't know, Willie Bell, Thor Kritzky, Dave Jacoby. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
You know, and here comes this kid who's a good squatter, but that's about all he's got going for him. He was benching like, I don't know, 420, and deadlifting maybe 640. You know,
You guys put a lot of muscle on him though, because at the end when he was benching high, I mean, he looked really muscular too.
oh, he's huge.
Yeah.
He's got his arms were measuring 20 inches hanging.
Yeah.
With veins all over him. But again, you know, this is focus and consistency, you know, and nothing would interfere. Yeah, I remember in the Pumping Iron movie with Arnold, he says, "Oh, my car broke down. I don't care. I hitchhiked to the gym." That was Kirk. Nothing would prevent him from. He was on a mission, and every week was important. And every set and every rep is important. And this is something that we stress with the kids we work with.
Mm-hmm.
His warm-ups with 135, he handled as if it were 900, right?
Right.
Everything it wasn't like, oh, we're just going to sloppy warm up. We're warming up. Hey, how's everybody doing? No, It was like church. And that's the same vibe. We'd wear our music. We weren't talking to each other. We were like, every workout was like the hairs on the back of your arm would come up, right? On the drive over, you're getting focused and centered. It used to be a 45-minute drive for me to go to Chalet's. And man, by the time I got there, I was in a cold frenzy.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about.
What about the intensity that Kirk brought? Like, I mean,
that was easy for him.
Yeah.
Because he's that kind of personality. I don't know how he would be a ADHD kid, right? They'd definitely be drugging him if he was coming off.
I guess a better way I'm saying it, obviously you guys channeled it correctly because you could just go ape shit and not make it productive, but obviously it was productive.
Well, there's effective psych and there's pretend psych.
For sure.
Right.
Right.
And I got it from Cassidy. I also got it from Bob Smith. I also got it from the martial arts. The martial arts guys are like, hey, man, at the highest level, you have to have the alert, blank headspace, and that makes your spidey senses to any incoming attacks, right? So in powerlifting, we would use auto-suggestion leading up to the workout. So whether it's Kirk or me, we're driving to the workout, we're using Soviet auto-suggestion technique. We're running a movie over and over in our head of the lift, right? Of the lift. You get to the point where even as you're doing your visualization, you smell what the gym smells like.
Absolutely.
Right? What, and you have to be careful because with your auto-suggestion, if you're not careful, you can let your adrenaline off. No, you can't. You got it. Not yet. Right. So, but you visualize, and over time, those visualizations become so real. Then you get out of the car, you get your bag, you walk up the stairs, you put your music on. That alerts everybody, don't talk to me.
Sure.
I'm in the zone. Go through your warm-ups, and you only have a finite amount of the mad juice. So,
absolutely.
Right. Okay, so now we're getting closer to that top set. You want to let it loose, can't make it. So finally, when you get to that top set of those squats on Monday, it is so easy to go crazy because you have so much psychological pressure built up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I think you make a great point there when you talk about smelling it, because I think so it's beyond a visualization. It's like it's a movie.
It's more than a movie. It's Cinemax. It's technical. At the best auto visualization, the line between reality and pretend is blurred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't tell the difference between a real and imagined experience if it's strong enough.
There you go. Right. So again, and then we would morph from the Soviet auto visualization technique into what I call a berserker psych, and it's that instant. Okay,
But you said a berserker psych?
usually at the chalk box, right?
Right.
When you hit the chalk box, okay, now it's time, and then you put that snapper under your nose, and it's on. Bang, let's go, and you turn around and you hit that bar,
It's like a white
and
moment. Yeah.
right now it's easy. Now the only thing is that immediately after that stun, you got to take it back down because we got to build back up because we still got a bench. We got to do it again. Right.
And how'd you, so did you study, because I know you had a background like Zen and some other things. So how did you
Yeah.
learn, and this is Soviets, where did you learn about all this?
Well, I started with John McCollum. If you go back to the old McCollum,
Strength and Health magazine.
yeah, the Keys to Progress
Oh yeah, his
articles,
book. Yep.
his first two articles were on concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was talking about was Soviet auto visualization technique. Now, later on, I got, by the time, when I was 15 years old, I started training with a Bechtel engineer from Iran, again, the Glenn Middleton connection.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Artishan Bagapur. And he had actually been to Moscow to train with the Russian Olympic team.
Okay.
Right. So he came back and he was stationed in Washington, D.C. at Bechtel. So he started coming over to my house. Now, this is a 25-year-old, 200-pound elite Olympic lifter.
Mm-hmm.
And he's coming to my house and my garage and training with me and my teenage buddies.
That's awesome.
Right. And he was a great personality. He's like, hey, he was one of those kind of guys. But he said, you guys got to get serious about your mind. You're clowns. This is a clown show. You're clowns. Be serious. And that started. And then when you find out that it works, that's when you get serious about it. Many years later, when I was working, I worked for 8 years for Weider as a training editor for Muscle and Fitness, and I got to interview Aladar Kobler, who was actually the inventor of the Soviet autosuggestion techniques. And so you see the classic, you see Pisarenko or Alexiev, and they walk out to the barbell and they stand there and they're standing over the barbell and their eyes are closed, and everybody's going, what are they doing? They would use auto visualization right up to the very end because Olympic lifting is too complex to use the berserker psych.
Absolutely.
Because
Too
it's
technical.
well, yeah, and it's too, with powerlifting it's perfect because it's a short range of motion, and you can let it go. You can go crazy, and legitimately that will help you if it's we can't. I shouldn't say crazy. That's you can access. I would say this: Kirk was consistently able to perform 2 to 5% better in training and competition, just purely because of his ability to mentally recalibrate. Sure. He was a great psycher, incredible psycher. He had a very routine. He would pace back and forth. He'd put his Walkman on, and he'd have a tape that would play one song over and over. He would walk 10 paces one direction, turn, walk 10 paces the other direction, turn, walk 10 back and forth. Our job is to keep people away from him. Whether it was like if it's at the Nationals or the Worlds, everybody wants to come up, hey, Kirk, can we get a picture? No. And by the time he's ready to hit his opener, he's got like little tears coming down his cheeks, right? And I remember one time, Stella Herrick, who was the team doctor for the United States, she said, did he get bad news? He's crying. I said, no, those are tears of rage.
Yeah.
And he is ready to murder. So and he literally would give off heat. Eddie Cohn would do the same thing. When Ed was ready to lift, I mean, we'd be wrapping him up and getting him ready, and you'd feel body heat coming off him. It'd be like, whoa, right? It was a external manifestation of an internal physical process where they're getting so jacked up that they're literally throwing off more body heat, and their eyes are going like pinwheels, and it's a cool thing to see, man. See somebody lift out of their skull and pull it off. Oh, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of psychic energy, though, huh?
Oh yeah.
So I think what did you guys do to how do you bring yourself back down? Because I think I'll give you an example of I don't train that heavy anymore, but like I've once in a while I will, and I get to that point again, and it's like it's like hard to come down. Like I mean, I did before I had to go to Australia, and I remember I couldn't sleep the night before the plane just because I was so jacked up still. When you haven't done it in a while. So what do you do to help bring yourself down?
You like alcohol?
The what now?
Alcohol,
Yeah, that's that.
beer is
Yeah.
good. I like beer. It's a great way to come down. I'm serious. We're not saintly over here, okay?
Okay, but what about like I mean obviously if you had too much too often it adversely affect your training.
Allegedly.
It's propaganda. What about yeah? What about Black's gym? That like
Oh my god.
I think what's cool about the powerlifting stuff here is now it's gotten more mainstream. So like I think we're like just from an entertainment and coolness standpoint, we're missing like a lot of cool characters. Like back then there were so many different people that are just like
God.
total.
Well,
characters.
yeah, but again, powerlifting was a splinter sport
Yeah.
of truly strong guys. Well, with the Blacks guys, you had John Florio, whose nickname was One Punch.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
John was the strongest skinny man I have ever seen. I saw John legitimately below parallel squat 800, deadlift 775, and he looked like a tennis pro.
Really?
Oh God, he just had no muscle, right? I mean, he's my height, so he's 5'10", 5'11", weighing 195 pounds, squatting 800. It defied imagination. So, and John was always the central figure. Bob Fortenbaugh was John's buddy. Bob and I co-coached when at the 90, what was that? The 91 World Championships were in Orebro. Is that 91 or 92? I think it was 91. Yeah, 91. We were in Orebro, Sweden, and it was Sean Scully. Sean's the head coach, and Bob Fortenbaugh and I handled the lifters at the World Championships. And we sent Blacks. So who else? Dave Waddington.
Okay.
Big Dave. Oh, he was great. And Hoss the boss. You don't want to forget Hoss. And the Cleveland. I mean, the Cleveland guys. And the Cleveland guys were totally different than the Columbus guys, who were totally different than the Dayton guys.
Yeah.
Right. And they each were totally different. Larry had it going on in Dayton with Eric Von Stuber, and he had a cast of characters there at a while. He had Joe Ladnier working there, and Mike Bridges was working there for a while. Who else? John Topsaglu. Great lifters. Larry was a great lifter. So again, the Blacks guys, we dominated. John approached me because they wanted Kirk. And so we won. What did we win?
I didn't realize they were that recent. I thought they would have been way before Kirk. Okay.
Oh no! Blacks was I coached. I worked with John. We won 5 national championships when I was working with him.
Okay.
I coached Blacks with Bob Fortenbaugh. John was sort of the business. He handled like the hotel arrangements and all that stuff. And Bob and I coached the lifters, and we'd split the team in half because we had what was it back then? 20. It was 23, 32, 48, 65, 81, 98, 220, 275, and 60. So there were nine weight classes.
Okay.
So Bob would take half, and I would take half. Right. And we would coach, and it would be 2 days. So you'd have 2 days at the national and 2 days at the worlds. And that was a long 2 days, baby. Let me tell you, particularly that first night. to not get trashed at the bar with all the guys that had lifted on day one, because you got to go to work on day two. But those are some incredible meets. But yeah, working with blacks, I got to work with Mike Hall. Great drug-free, super heavyweight lifter, legitimate 960 squatter, legitimate 600 bencher, legitimate 800. Lars Norn beat Mike, but it was a close thing. Who else did we work? Well, Eddie, of course. And Kirk was holding down the 275s at the time. We were so strong then, both nationally and internationally. Blacks was so powerful. We would fight against the United States Armed Forces team nationally, and Sean would coach the Armed Forces team. They had great lifters like Gene Bell. Gene was, Crosby Alexander. But we I coached Lamar Gant.
Even O.D. Wilson was Armed Forces at one time, huh?
Yeah, that's right. So it was the Armed Forces against blacks. That was the Clash of the Titans, right? Nationally. Internationally, we were so strong, we would win the world team title on day one.
Wow.
Right? And our best lifters were on day two. Oh, we crushed. We were so powerful. We were so far ahead of the rest of the world at that time. And those guys, I mean, you look at their physiques, basically they were lifting raw or almost raw, and they bore the weight, and it told in the physiques, the bodies in those guys. You look at a guy like John Gamble when he was at his peak. I'll tell you what, man, it's like, whoa, right? Kirk was a monster. They were all monsters. But again, Kaz, there's never been a more muscular super than Kaz.
Absolutely. What about, did you ever deal with, do you know Vincenello at all?
Yeah, Vince was before me.
Okay.
He came up in the first wave. Vince was in the 70s, guys. That was the Doug Young, Larry. Lamar was around then. That was a little before I got into it. I kind of got into it seriously starting in the late 70s and the 80s.
Vince is real big on those mental training techniques too. That's why I thought y'all might have crossed paths.
Vince is great. He's just a great person.
Yeah.
And a great personality.
And what about yourself? So you were hitting your kind of elite numbers as a masters lifter, right?
Well, I broke my leg. I had squatted 845, weighing 250.
Okay.
4 weeks before the Nationals.
Okay.
Following week, I took the light squat workout and broke my leg.
Okay.
700 fell off my back, and it slipped off my back and cracked my left femur.
Okay.
So that's when I got into coaching.
Okay.
Because my big time career was over. So, and I was working with Mark anyway. So that's when I said, you know what? I want to stay in the game. I don't want to be a referee. I don't want to be an official. So that's when I started working with Kirk, working with Mark, working with blacks, right?
Right.
Which kept me in the game. 10 years later, I broke my leg when I was 33, so that would have been 1983. In 91, I was looking at the totals that the guys were posting as a masters lifters, and I said, I might be able to hang with these guys. So to make a long story short, I competed in 6 national masters. I won all 6. I won at 198, 220, and 242 in 6 years.
And what were your lifts?
I think my best lift, I set a national age group record at age 46 where I squatted 722 at 220.
Okay.
And pulled, my pull was good. My bench was terrible because, I didn't really do any benching until I got into powerlifting.
Okay.
Right. So my bench was always lagging. The most I ever benched was 440. I was giving away so much, but I'd get it back in the dead. I was a good deadlifter, not a great deadlifter. But I'd always finish it. I'd always finish in the top, if not the top squat, close to the top squat, and right up near the top in the deadlift. And usually, I'd did win 5 times, 6 times. So yeah. And then internationally, I won the IPF World Championship in Australia.
Okay.
I took second, and that won at 220, and then I moved to 242 and got second in Toronto at the IPF Worlds, and I got third in Slovakia.
Okay.
But those overseas trips were horrible.
Oh, I would
I
imagine.
lost I lost 13 pounds in the trip to Slovakia. They used to have us go in, I forget, was it 8 days ahead of time to accustom to the time difference. It was insane now. Of course, we didn't know any better back then. It was just that's what they told us we needed to do. That's what we do. But to spend 7 days in Slovakia, and the first day we got there, we noticed like the bars opened at 10 o'clock, and all the locals were like, charge the bar at 10 o'clock, and they're drinking vodka.
At 10 a.m.?
At 10 a.m., right? In the weekdays, right? And we're like, oh, these guys are savages. Let me tell you, by the time I got to the 7th day, I was at the bar at 10 a.m. drinking vodka.
Gotcha.
Nothing to do. It was the biggest ghetto, nothing but concrete ghetto. But I tell you what, the hotel was terrible. But right next to it, there was this god awful tennis court. And the guy said, hey, he said, that's where Martina Navratilova learned tennis. I was like, oh, damn.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that, right?
That's interesting.
So anyway, but after that, then Kirk quit. Kirk won 6 straight world championships. And he goes, I'm bored. And we always had to travel overseas. None of the IPF meets were held in the United States. They had this damn crazy lawsuit stuff going on.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just insane. So we always had to travel. And we just got tired of it, man. It's just like, Kirk was like, it's a funny story. So Kirk says, I'm quitting. And I said, why? I said, you can win the next 5 years. He said, I'm tired of it. He said, what do I want to do that so I can do this? I said, all right. So I said, all right, well, Kirk, I said, how about this? I said, why don't you lift, win it wearing no gear, not even a belt? I said, you could certainly squat, what, 8, you did 805 with just a belt, so you can certainly squat, what, 840? He said, oh, yeah, I can do 840. I said, well, you can bench, what, 500 raw, right? Oh, yeah, no problem. I said, you can certainly deadlift 750. Yeah. Well, I said, that's a winner. Let's go. He said, nah, I don't want to do that.
He'd probably deadlift more because he wouldn't be as tired from the squat.
Exactly. Well, eventually he did. So
he did that AAU meet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They're very good, Josh. So then I said, Kirk, how about this? How about you become the first world champion in history in any sport to win a world championship and not train for it? He said, what? I said, Kirk, I said, just stick around and do whatever you do. I said, on your worst day, even if you didn't train, could you squat 8? Yeah. Could you bench 475? Of course. Could you deadlift 750? Well, yeah. I said, that's a winner. I said, you could be the first person in history to win a world championship and not train for it. I thought it was great. Bobby Myers was like, yes, that's incredible. That's awesome. That's genius, right?
Right.
And that's a wicked documentary. Here he is, week 2, not training. Right? It would have been great.
Yeah.
He said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm sick of this. So that was it. So when he hung it up, I hung it up.
What about
that was kind of the end of the party train.
Well, I want to ask you about somebody else that I know you wrote about. At least I don't know your relationship, but Doug Furness.
Doug.
Because I know obviously we talk a lot about Ed Cohn and stuff. I've already had him on here, and I think people know him. Where Doug Furness is somebody that people should know.
Yeah, Doug was my friend. I coached Doug at the Minnesota Jerry Jones's national championships. When was that? 88? Yeah, I coached. Doug was the athlete, right? He's from Oklahoma. He was from, what was the name of the town? Commerce, Oklahoma, the same town that Mickey Mantle was from.
Okay.
and it was Doug and his brother. He had a younger brother, and his parents and his sister, and they all were rodeo people.
Yep.
Everybody did rodeo,
Okay.
right? And they raised the Brahma bulls that they ride.
Yeah.
They raised riding bulls.
Okay.
But Doug didn't ride those at the time. He started out, I believe, on the bucking Broncos. Anyway, they were coming back from a rodeo show, and they got in a horrific head-on automobile accident. And Doug was completely shattered. He had to go in the hospital for basically a year, had to have a bunch of stuff rebuilt. Like the impact was such it exploded his spleen. I mean, he was a mess. But he started doing progressive resistance to recover.
Okay.
So, plus it put him back in school a year. So now Doug and his brother are in the same year.
Okay.
Right. And they started, and so they rehabbed together. They trained together. And Doug's brother was a big, tall guy. Doug was my height, 5'10", 5'11". So Doug said, Marty, he said, when we started playing football, he said, all these other kids, he said, they had been playing t-ball and flag football and stuff. He said, my brother and I, we'd been hauling hay bales and wrestling steers and getting in fist fights. He said, it wasn't fair. He said, when we started playing against these kids, they ended up, their small school won the Oklahoma state championship in their division.
Yep.
Both brothers played in the Oil Bowl, OIL Bowl, which is the top high school players in Oklahoma play the top high school players in Texas. They went on to junior college together. They won the junior college national championships.
I didn't realize he went to junior college before University of Tennessee then. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had to go to JUCO. He went to JUCO. Both of them went to JUCO
Do you know
first.
where?
Yeah, well, yeah, they go to junior college before you go to college.
No, but which junior college? You know what it was?
Oh, it was some whatever the Oklahoma school is, whatever the local Oklahoma school is. Then they got drafted by Johnny Majors to come to Tennessee together. And terrible. I'm having a brain lock. I can't remember Doug's brother's name, but the brother played the offensive line. Doug was a fullback.
Yeah.
And they played on the same team as Willie Gault and Reggie White.
Wow.
Yeah. And Doug was drafted by Denver, but he developed chronic hamstring pull. And he hated Dan Reeves. Him and Reeves had a real personality conflict. Mm-hmm. So Doug got out of football, decided that he would go. Now, he had competed in powerlifting in the off season while he was at Tennessee, and he actually won the national collegiates.
Yep.
And I believe then he met Ed. He met Eddie at the YMC Nationals. That probably was 83. And Doug and Ed hit it off immediately. Doug was funny. He said, "Yeah." I said, "I told my brother." He said, after the Y Nationals, he said, "Who'd you like at that meet?" He said, "You know that really white kid, that little really white kid. The kid looked like like Casper the Ghost. He looked like he had some sort of pigmentation problem. That kid. I liked him." That was Ed, right? So they started commiserating. Doug and his brother were mentored by Dennis Wright.
Okay.
Dennis Wright was a Hall of Fame world champion, 180. He was a national lifter starting at 165, then 181, then 198. And him and Walter Thomas had the great battles back and forth. And Dennis was a great squatter, great bencher, average deadlifter. Mm-hmm. Walter Thomas was a good squatter, a good bencher, and an outstanding deadlifter. World record 775 deadlifter at 198.
Yeah.
So they had, and they're both from the same county in Oklahoma. Wow, right?
Wow.
So they had that was going on. Doug and his brother would train with Dennis. So Dennis was the one who he'd have them do kind of like we do the competitive type lifting one day. Then he would have them come back 3 days later and do pause reps, five squats, 5 rep pause squats.
Okay.
And Doug said that's where he built his size. His legs were incredible. His legs were, I don't know if they looked as big as Kirk's for sure. Incredible thighs, incredible calves. So Doug and Ed found out that they trained very much alike. And they really created that template that I'm sure you've talked to Ed about his training.
Of course,
Ed's training
Ed's definitely a mentor of mine for sure.
I love Ed. I love Ed's training. I love his strategy. So it's a sin that his stuff is not followed like the Bible.
Sure.
All right. So they developed this composite training strategy that I passed on to Kirk. We modified it a little bit. Kirk didn't do the bodybuilding movements. Ed had more time than Kirk for one thing, because
sure.
Ed was full time. He didn't have to contend with the day job. But Eddie would do things like, tricep push downs, and he'd do some leg press stuff, and some bodybuilding stuff. Chins, he could do chins with incredible weights, and he would do them on a routine basis. So Eddie was also, kind of a power bodybuilder.
For sure.
Little less than Kaz, little less volume.
I think Eddie's actually the one that came up with that term.
Well, actually, I think I gave it to him.
Okay.
So.
Well, okay, Doug, though, I read this about, you were talking about at the Hawaii World Record Breakers, he squatted 855 or something with no belt or anything on. Just
warming up. His shoelaces weren't even tied. Just sloppy. It was and I'm like, whoa, hey, Doug, you need a spot. And he said, God damn, Marty, it's only 855. I'm like,
you say he did like a backflip after it or something?
Oh, yeah, later on we're showing. And now Doug, he didn't drink or smoke. He was a very straight, didn't cuss, he was kind of a straight guy. But yeah, athletic as hell. Incredible. I don't know what his vertical was. I'm sure it was 40. But yeah, he did a backflip, just showing off, weighing 275. But he had a six pack, and he had veins on his delts, and he was tight. He was athletic. Also, he was always in control. I don't know if I ever saw him miss a lift. I did once when he was hurt.
Never at his capacity on squat, because when he squatted that 986 of that meet, it's like he was saving it up for the deadlift or something.
I asked him. I said, man, you crushed that. I said, let's break the 1,000 barrier. He said, always a pause. That's okay, Marty. I'm going to save it for the total. Always quiet, always understated. Yeah, anytime Doug spoke, everyone would lean forward. Right.
Right. Yeah. Now let me ask you a couple more questions. What about I talked a little about nutrition. I thought you had pretty interesting points because you said you like to cycle the more traditional like Perillo bodybuilding diet with the warrior diet too.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that now we're talking generally. Eventually, to improve strength, you have to go outside strength. Right.
Right.
And unless you just take a lot of anabolics and just gain a bunch of body weight, any system will work. But what we do is we suggest that the guys cycle. Why not cycle your nutrition like you cycle your lifting? Why not sync up your training with your nutrition? Classically, if there's no major competitions coming up, we like to do our power training in the winter, right? It's cold, right? The food tastes better, taking more calories. Yeah. I mean, this is the time to add the quality size. Then when the weather breaks, you want to change, you're tired of pounding the heavy weights over and over. All right, let's open things up a little bit. Let's switch directions nutritionally.
Sure. And
so the time to get the most lean, why not in the heat of the summer? Why not do a little cardio? Get fit, get some cardio in. lighten up, do the most volume. Let's modulate the training so that you're reducing the payloads, you're increasing the volume, you're opening up the training menu, you're being more
Sure.
active, you're doing some cardio, lighter lean eating. Let's get to the lighter proteins. Let's actually include some vegetables. You know, and again, then after that dies out, now here comes the fall. Where are you located at, by the way?
I'm in South Lake, Texas, suburb of Dallas, Fort Worth.
Okay, all right. So you have seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's actually like
come.
winter right now. It's weird today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird for us too. So anyway, just this whole idea of why not get synced up. I do. I'm an older person, so I eat less. To me, it seems very natural. To me, I think breakfast is the worst meal of the day. Uh, we believe in this. I believe in this fasted cardio thing, where if in order to stay resilient, I love to get up. I normally get up at 3:30. Get up at 3:30. I get the coffee going. I write from 4 to usually 7, and I hit the woods. I go run, right, and I'll either sprint or I'll do some sort of steady state. I have a 150-acre farm that I use, and it has
Okay.
all kinds of trails. I've got steep mountainsides I can run up if I want, power leg work. I've got beautiful flat surfaces if I just want to sprint, and so we get the cardio in. Then I'll come back and take a shake. And I don't normally eat anything till 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And from usually 2 to 3 till about 7 is when I take my calories in. But I'm not suggesting that for everybody.
When do you run?
I'm an
Are you
older
more
guy.
like jogging? Or are you doing intervals? What are you doing?
Oh man, we don't jog. Come on, man. We run. We sprint. We're lifters. We run and bang. That's what we do.
So what?
You
Like what's a? I mean,
Oh,
mostly hill sprints or what?
I'll do. If all right. So yesterday was all right. Sunday was a heavy training day. I had a couple of my rugby guys come up.
Okay.
I trained some pro rugby guys. Those guys are great. I
Okay.
love the rugby guys. So they came up and we trained and we knocked the hell out of ourselves on Sunday. So on Monday I took just a light. Well, I mean light. I'm breaking sweat.
Okay.
But this is a 40-minute, 45-minute run where across country at my elevation, I have one stretch where I have 45-degree angle where I go 700 feet. So
Jeez.
it's like, right. So it's mule time, right? You get like a mule and you go up
Yeah.
that, and that builds your cardio lung power. I also have beautiful flat surfaces that are wood chips. So it's like running on a trampoline. So I do 8. If I'm sprinting, I'll do 8 all-out sprints, usually 40 to 60 yards. Don't do more than 8 because you don't want to run fast when you're fatigued. So, and again, I'm fast for me, but it's all just in relation to me. That's the beautiful thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm just running. It is so exhilarating to run at 100%.
I totally agree.
This that burst. It's akin to what we do. It's akin to lifting. That all out effort and then relax until the next all out effort.
Yeah.
So we'll do my 8 sprints, jog back to the start line. That's all for that day. Then I'll alternate. I'll probably sprint hard twice a week with some gaps between there, and I'll do some hill work one day, never before leg day. I don't do anything hard before the
Yeah.
Sunday workout. Is we crush ourselves, so I don't want to do anything that's going to fatigue me for that workout, and I have to have an easy workout the day after. But other than that, it's we hit it every day, and why not? It's so beautiful, and I put on my music. I can have anything, and you're oxygenating fresh air and there's nobody around and it's the woods and no one gets up early. Everybody wants to do their stuff at 12 o'clock. And it's like, well, you all go ahead and do that. So I hit it at first light and often it's the high point of my day.
Yeah. So you write from 3:30 to 7, you said, every day, or 4 to 7, or
Yeah, yeah. But
that's cool.
my time is my own. I've been, when you're a full-time professional writer, I go to bed at 8:30. You know what I mean. But I
Yeah, for
can. I'm
sure.
shook loose in time. It doesn't matter, right?
I woke up at 3:50 this morning. I'm the same way.
Yeah, and I don't set an alarm clock. I get up and I'm like, let's go,
Yeah,
right?
no, definitely.
Boom, let's go, right? And I have things to say. That's the best creative time. I'll do my rewrites in the afternoon. I do my creative writing in the first writing session, and then good writing's in the rewriting. And I do that in the afternoon. And that's more mechanical, fixing stuff up. But I put out I put out 80 articles last year,
Wow.
and I finished 2 books. Not for me. I do some ghostwriting.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm
And
busy.
what about, so let me touch on this before we get off here. What about I heard you've developed some sort of suspension system.
I found a device called CrossCore, which had been kind of no one really knew anything about it. 8 years ago, I work with Tier One military guys,
Okay.
and 8 years ago, John Foss, John was actually one of the guys who remember when they shot the helicopter down in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
John went down with that
Oh, wow.
helicopter. So John had contacted me. This is a couple 3 years before that happened, and said, "Look," he said, "when we're deployed, FOB, when we're at forward operating base, we don't have any equipment. So we take in a couple kettlebells and we'll maybe take in a TRX." He said, "Is there anything out there that we're missing? Is there anything portable that could be of value? Because we're
Yeah.
not all that fired up about kettlebells and
Sure.
TRX. I mean, they kind of just sit there." So I found this device. It's called a CrossCore, and it has a rotational component to it. So I got it, and I put a spindle on it
Okay.
so that it allows you to use one arm at a time, both arms at a time. Uh, I'm able to replicate. All right, let me put it to you differently. The original challenge with the suspension trainer was, can you get a barbell, dumbbell quality exercise off a suspension trainer? Is that possible?
Hmm.
I devised this device so I'd say, all right, this is like a pair of dumbbells, but these are magical dumbbells in that I can alter the poundage during the set
Sure.
by I either inch forward a little bit to make it a little lighter, or inch backward a little bit to make it a little heavier. But I can do that in real time. I can do that between reps. So the strategy that we worked out is they would do 5 reps, and also we would use a grind speed, and we would emphasize the negative.
Okay.
Full range of motion, relaxation at the bottom of every rep. We want to go from full relaxation to full contraction on every rep.
Okay. Yeah.
Full range of motion.
Hmm.
Uh, so we were able to devise like the equivalent of dumbbell bench, row,
Yeah, that's a video I saw was you guys were doing double bench. Yep.
curls,
Hmm.
triceps. Right now, it's not so good for the the pulls. You can't replicate that, but for upper body stuff, this thing is great, and it will burn down. I tell you what, I burnt down Brad Gillingham on it. Just said, "Hey, Brad, let's see if you can get the 10 reps on this thing in the bench, but you got to do it my way." And Brad's a 620 raw bencher,
Yeah.
right? And he got the rep 7, and that was it. I said, "All right, we're on to something here." So anyway, that's it's a I call it TRX on steroids. I mean, it's so much more multidimensional, and we're going to try to get it out there a little more. And again, I have no stake in it. There's no financial gain for me. I just found this tool, and just by modifying it just a little bit, this thing will light you up.
Okay.
Okay, but you have to know the protocol with the device. It's a
Okay.
highly specified protocol. Uh, so let me ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
You benched 600 raw.
620 in a meet. Yep.
Love that. What was your body weight?
Right now, I'm
No.
then about 305.
Boy, I bet that was tough pushing it up. Wasn't it? Wasn't that hard holding it up there?
It was man, it was so quick. It was over. I don't the
You're ready to pop.
yeah. Then I tried 630 right after, and it didn't go up. And it was funny because the first time I benched 600 raw, it was one of those deals where that was my goal. It went up like an empty bar, but I think since I accomplished the goal, 611 wasn't close. Because
Well, yeah, but the same thing happened to Kirk when he squatted the 1,000 for the
sure,
first time. That was his second attempt. He had doubled it. So we had six. I figured 640. I mean, if you double 1,000, I mean, what do you know? That should be good for more.
absolutely.
But what we didn't figure on was the emotional expenditure. When he hit that 1,000, that place went crazy.
That was like
Right.
Baton Rouge or somewhere.
Hmm?
Was that down in Baton Rouge?
I think it was.
Yeah,
But it was the same thing with you. When you hit your sixth, you weren't counting on the emotional component, and you just didn't have it for the 611.
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. That's
So
great. That's a great accomplishment. How tall are you?
I'm like 5'11" and a half.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah,
Good. I mean, you were smart. Took the weight off.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I train more how you do now. So
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about competing again.
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I'm done, but I like helping other people a lot with it. So you know, it's
Well, you got to help them.
yep,
That's the whole deal, right?
that's the whole deal. So
We're passing on the knowledge. All I'm doing is passing on the knowledge my mentors passed on to me.
absolutely,
And again, we get these good messages out there that average people can make spectacular gains with
100%.
with a very, very, very minimal amount of time. If they know what they're doing, they've got to learn how to push to 102% safely. All these guys, the problem that we find when we're dealing with regular people is they're all drifting around in the 80 to 85% range, and it's not enough.
Not enough.
It's not enough. That's not enough to trigger the adaptive response. You have to take it up to your current capacity. Some days our capacity is enhanced, other days our capacity is diminished. Whatever our capacity is, it's our duty to work up to it. And typically what I'll do is I'll just rep a weight out, right? I'll pull it out of the rack, and if I've got it, well, let's go. Now, I'm not going to miss the rep, but I know when I don't have another one in me.
You go hard enough to force an adaptive response.
Or what? We're going to strive for mediocrity?
Yeah, amen to that.
All right, let's do another one of these.
Okay, definitely do another one. I really appreciate you coming on, Marty, and I'll hit you up when this is up. Okay.
All right, now look, two things. Look for me on Iron Company.
Okay.
We have a column. I write a column each week.
I wasn't trying to get you off. I think you're trying to get me off. So so to make sure.
So we write a column for Iron Company each week. We also do a podcast. I do a podcast with my buddy Jim Steele. Jim was the strength and conditioning coach at University of Pennsylvania for 20 years.
What's that called? If people don't know it.
Hmm?
What's your podcast called? If people don't know it.
Raw with Marty Gallagher.
Okay.
IronCompany.com, and we just talk like we're talking now, and we'll either talk amongst ourselves or we'll bring somebody on. We get you on.
I'd love it.
Yeah, but we'll have to find some strange detail about you that we'll have to bring up for the first time.
Some of the cats you've run with, I don't think I'm
stories. Also, people should pick up that Purposeful Primitive book.
I was about to that. Definitely.
I actually reread that thing and I said, well, this is pretty good.
It's damn good. It's a great book, and it's kind of like, especially nowadays with the quarantine situation, all this, I think it's going to help people with the right, also help with the mindset too, because I think you do a good job of covering that in there too.
Yeah. Well, again, the book the premise of the book was radical physical transformation. What do we know? How do we accomplish it? People don't train to barely change. They don't diet to barely. I mean, they want to get dramatically physically different.
Absolutely.
And in order to do that, you have to have a resistance training element.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a cardiovascular training element. You have to have a nutritional element. And you have to have what we call brain training, which is the psychological aspects
100%.
of engineering a radical physical transformation. Now, people like you and me, we're shapeshifters. You were at 305, now you're at
250.
250. If somebody told you you needed to, you could get to 220 in 12 weeks. You know, for us, it's easy. People think this is magic. It's not. It's if you concentrate in just one thing, if you concentrate in just being a lifter, if you concentrate on just dieting, if you concentrate on I just run 5Ks, you're missing the boat. It has to be a holistic, total effort. It has to be 4 elements integrated and applied. A little bit of each is better than a whole lot of any one. And again, this is from a general perspective. This is from I don't know, an athletic
you have the real
or a
world
military.
results to back it too. Because I was laughing and listening to you one time talk about you interviewed that super slow guy, and you asked him at the end of the interview, "Well, what's an example of a transformation?"
It's like crickets.
Yeah. Well, it's going to work. We just hadn't had a chance to use it.
Oh, yes. Our studies show. There's another guy who beat me up with science. He was son of Arthur Jones. The super slow was born out of the Nautilus. And he was another one. He beat me up with science. Oh, well, our science shows that what you're doing is, it's can't on and on. So, yeah, those guys, the super slow. I'd forgotten about them. So many of them. They come and they go, don't they?
There's a lot of that. I mean, you look even 5 years ago, the faces are a lot different than were here 5 years ago.
Also, I think that we're trying to wean people off the whole bodybuilding concept, the thing of a lot of volume. Anytime you have a lot of volume, you've got to moderate your intensity. You know, unless you're an elite taking a lot of gas, you can't do volume and intensity.
And often too, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Volume, a lot of training, intensity, high level all the time. No. I did the math. You know, Schwarzenegger at his peak was doing 700 sets a week.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I sit down with a copy of Rick Wayne's 3 More Reps book. It has Arnold's exact workout routine at Olympia peak, right?
Right.
700 sets a week. Again, training each muscle 3 times a week. Now, by comparison, Karwoski won his world championship doing less than 50.
I also think, though, that Arnold wasn't putting the same intensity into it that Kirk was. You know what I mean?
Well, we can't.
Kirk, like the mindset that Kirk goes in there with is just tiring, where Arnold's a little more relaxed.
Well, it has to be if you have it 2.5 hours in front of you.
Yeah.
You got to make it across the finish line.
Exactly.
As soon as Kirk, we would just work up to 1 top set of squats. You're done. We didn't do back offs. We'd work up to 1 top set of bench press. You're done. Now he would do some incline work, a little bit of arm work, deadlifts. You know, we didn't do any Romanian deadlifts or anything. We just deadlifted. You can do that other stuff. Great, have at it. But eat your meat and potatoes before you eat your dessert.
Did you ever do any power cleans? I know you've had other people.
We love power cleans.
Yeah.
Okay. Like the innermost concentric circle is squat, bench, dead. 1 concentric circle out would be power cleans, overhead presses. I don't know what else. Something. Rows maybe, some arm work, right? And then, we love power cleans, but we've changed our approach toward power cleans. I do a lot of work with Leo Cotton, who's a top Olympic coach.
Yeah, I know.
And Leo. Leo's up in my neighborhood. He's in Westminster, which is about 30 miles away from me. But Leo explained to us that the top guys, they're only doing like doubles and singles. They're not repping. Like back in our day, we'd do like 5 reps in the power clean, right? Well, the thinking today is that you can't. It burns your central nervous system out. You have to have a fresh central nervous system. Again, Charlie
It's a complex
Francis,
movement, yeah.
right? Again, the same Charlie. We need to be totally rested to have 100% effort. So we always do the power clean before the dead. It starts the session. It's a great way to warm up for the deadlift. And with the power clean, you have to create the velocity. You have to have that momentum. Too many of the guys, they do like an upright row with a reverse curl at the top, right?
For sure.
That's not explosive. Bill Starr explained it to me once. He said, Marty, when an Olympic lifter takes their hands off the bar, that bar keeps going up, right? You said with a power lifter, as soon as they take their hands off the bar, that bar drops like a guillotine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So to get that, right?
Right.
And just all you got to do is 2 reps, guys. And usually my guys, they're new at it, so they'll end up like at 135. So, all right, let's deadlift. Do your 2 rep power cleans, bang, bang, right?
Right.
And when you work up to a point where they start to slow down, you're done. That's it. When you hit your first slow rep, it's over. Time to deadlift. Perfect time to deadlift.
You're already warmed up somewhat.
You're already warmed up. So, yeah, we love the power clean.
Okay, cool. Well, anything else you want to kind of part with, Marty, before we do this again?
Martin. No one's called me Martin.
I met Marty. I said
Since I told my science teacher in 1962, don't call me that.
Okay.
Marty.
I thought I said Marty. I mean, I haven't had no beer today or anything, so I thought it'd be...
I've done pretty good. I've actually tried to get. I haven't drank, I guess, in a month. I'm pushing my body weight down. I'm looking at maybe competing at 184.
Wow.
And I was coming off the winter. Seemed like every day was cause for beer celebration. I mean, it was just something incredible happening every day that was just, it was fabulous. But I was weighing about 220, a little heavy. So now I'm down to, today I was 201.
What's your lifts like now?
Probably, if I push myself, it wouldn't be anything to write home about. I don't know. I could squat double body weight raw.
Awesome.
Well, it's not awesome. It's okay. So I'm kind of half thinking about maybe getting back into this thing, assuming that things normalize. But we'll see how that unfolds. How about you? What you doing? You look in good shape.
Yeah, I train hard still. I'm just not competing anymore.
Oh, who needs it?
Yeah, so.
You know what I mean?
I do a lot more conditioning and stuff now, so.
Good. Feeling good?
Feeling great.
Yeah, good, buddy. Good. That's the whole thing. But you see what I'm saying? You round it out. So many of our brothers refuse any cardio, refuse any diet advice. The biggest mistake that a lot of guys make is after they retire, they hang on to their old eating habits. You remember how you ate when you pushed up to 305?
Like insanely, yeah.
Could you imagine doing that now?
No, and then they also hang on to their old training habits of taking 3 hours between sets and all. Yeah, no, totally.
Or trying to lift too heavy too long, man. You can't stay too long at the fair.
Yeah.
You have to understand that if you want to stay competitive, as you get older, you get weaker. But the good news is everybody else gets weaker, so you don't have to lift as much, right? So that again, it's just you have to. My strategy is I can improve upon where I was last week.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I
want to beat where I was last week because I can do that.
Absolutely.
I have that in my control. I ain't comparing myself to 1983.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of my buddies who do.
Really?
Oh, yeah. If I can't squat 800, what's the point of training? Well, you know what? They never really loved training to begin with.
No, it was more of like an ego recognition or something.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. The competition, the eyes. I remember Dorian, one time I was talking to Dorian, and he said, I hated competition. He said, I would have just rather just trained all the time.
Yeah, I hear that.
He said, to me, he said, competition was just such a hassle and an aggravation. Some guys love to train. I love to train.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Some guys do it because they want the attention. Those are the guys who drop the 5 reps in the deadlift at the YMCA with the 405 so everybody will look at them.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. It's like, man, if you dropped a weight at Cassidy's, oh my God. If you just got kicked out, you'd be getting off lucky.
Gotcha.
You didn't drop weights. That's why our deadlifts are all so good, because we use the negative of the deadlift. Everybody now just drops it. Boom, drop it, because they can. They're throwing away all the muscle building, strength building benefit that goes with that deadlift negative. We don't throw away the negative in the bench. We don't throw away the negative in the squat. Why are we throwing it away in the deadlift?
So this was in his basement too, where you guys were at, right?
Now we have a beautiful little. Donnie has a place in the country. It's funny. He's on the base of the other side. I'm on one side of the mountain. He's on the other side of the mountain. Of course, I got to drive 22 miles. If it was by the Crow, he'd be about 3 miles away.
Yeah.
But with the back mountain roads, I got to drive 22 miles.
So it's not an easy 22 miles.
It's not. He has a beautiful little building that he's built in the back of his farm, and It's just great. It's a one open area. He's a Wing Chun instructor, so he does martial arts during the week, and then we train on Sunday. But now I'm training up here. I have my home gym, and I'll bring up a guy or two, and we'll hit it on Sunday. I'm working with some rugby pros now. These guys are great. These are the fit. These are the most like the tier 1 military guys. The rugby guys that's the best match to the tier 1 military guys. Everyone says, oh, the football players. Football is totally different. Football, you get big rest in between.
Sure.
Rugby, man, you're on the field, man, the whole time. And you gotta have the locomotion endurance, and you gotta have the size, and you gotta have the strength. Right.
Yeah, I mean it's like as much running as soccer, but you get tackled.
Oh yeah. It's got that thing going on. Yeah. There's some hands involved in rugby, let me tell you. So anyway, Josh, it's great, buddy. I love talking to you. We can go on. We go on all day, right?
Yep. We'll definitely do it again. I appreciate it, Marty.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
All right. We'll be in touch. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, people. Thank you.